His engine died, so this canine alien girl pulled the cart on all fours. The blizzard howled like a wounded beast across the icy ravines of Lumina. Jared Frost gripped the controls of his transport sled tighter, his knuckles white beneath his thermal gloves. The delivery container behind him held medical supplies worth more than he'd make in 5 years. Supplies that could save hundreds of lives in the isolated settlement of North Haven. "Come on, you stubborn piece of..." Jared muttered as warning lights flashed across his dashboard. The engine made a sound no machine should ever make. A high-pitched whine followed by a series of pops that reverberated through the frame. Then silence. Complete, devastating silence. The transport sled drifted to a halt in the middle of the mountain pass, snow piling against its sides with alarming speed. Jared slammed his fist against the control panel, but the dead machine offered no response. Perfect. Just perfect. He ran a hand through his dark blonde hair, now damp with sweat despite the freezing temperature. His broad shoulders tensed as he assessed his situation. No communications, no settlements for 50 miles. A storm intensifying by the minute, and a cargo that couldn't wait. Jared pulled his thermal gear tighter around his athletic frame and stepped out into the biting cold. The wind immediately slashed at his exposed face, but he forced himself to circle the transport, checking for any obvious issues he might fix. The engine compartment revealed the worst, a completely fried power core, its components melted beyond any field repair. He leaned against the sled, calculations running through his mind. Even at his peak physical condition, he couldn't possibly drag the transport and its cargo through this terrain. Freezing to death was now a very real possibility. As darkness began to fall, Jared prepared for a long, desperate night. He'd activated his emergency beacon, but in this weather, rescue could take days. Days the people of North Haven didn't have. That's when he saw it, a flicker of movement through the curtain of snow. At first, he thought his eyes were playing tricks, but then the shape drew closer, moving with surprising grace through the deep drifts. It was a figure, distinctly feminine, but clearly not human. As she approached, Jared's breath caught in his throat. She was covered in short, silky blue fur that seemed to shimmer even in the dim light. Her face was strikingly beautiful, almost human in its features, but with an exotic quality enhanced by delicate, pointed ears that twitched slightly as she assessed him. Her body was athletic, yet curved in all the right places, emphasized by a form-fitting outfit that appeared both practical and somehow alluring. She moved with predatory grace, her eyes, a startling amber, fixed on him with curious intensity. "Well," she said, her voice carrying easily over the wind, "you're certainly in a bind, aren't you, human?" Her lips curved into a playful smile, revealing teeth just slightly sharper than a human's. Jared straightened, trying to maintain his composure. "My transport's dead. I'm making an emergency delivery to North Haven." She circled him, studying both him and the sled with obvious interest. Medical supplies by the look of that container. Valuable. Time-sensitive. She tilted her head. "And you're that courier everyone talks about, the one who never fails?" "Jared Frost," he confirmed, extending a gloved hand. She looked at it with amusement before taking it in her fur-covered one. "Kira," she replied, "of the Lunari." Jared had heard of the Lunari, a reclusive alien species native to Lumina's mountains. They rarely interacted with the human settlements, preferring to keep to themselves. "I can help you," Kira said, her eyes glinting with mischief. "But you'll owe me a favor in return." "What kind of favor?" Jared asked cautiously. She laughed, a sound like silver bells. "Nothing terrible. I'll decide later." Before he could respond, she moved to the front of the sled where the tow cables were stored. "Do you want my help or not, human? Those supplies won't deliver themselves." With no other options, Jared nodded. "I accept." What happened next left him speechless. Kira dropped to all fours, her body shifting slightly as she positioned herself in front of the sled. She gestured for him to attach the tow cables to the harness on her outfit. "You can't be serious," Jared said, staring in disbelief. "My people are stronger than we look," she replied with a wink. "Now hurry up before we both freeze." Feeling awkward and slightly embarrassed, Jared connected the cables. Once secure, Kira flexed, and the muscles beneath her fur rippled with power. To his astonishment, the heavy sled began to move, cutting through the snow with surprising ease. Jared grabbed onto the steering controls, still processing what was happening. Ahead of them stretched miles of treacherous mountain terrain, and he was being pulled through it by the most beautiful alien he'd ever seen, on all fours like some exotic beast of burden. "Keep up, courier," Kira called back, her voice playful despite the exertion. "I've got a feeling this is going to be quite the adventure." As they moved deeper into the storm, Jared couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just taken a turn into uncharted territory, one far more dangerous and exciting than any delivery he'd made before. They'd been traveling for nearly 2 hours when Jared noticed the change in Kira's pace. Her movements became more deliberate, her head turning slightly to catch sounds that were lost to his human ears beneath the howling wind. "Something wrong," he called out, his hand instinctively moving to the pulse pistol holstered at his hip. Kira's reply came in a low growl. "We're being followed." No sooner had the words left her mouth than a high-pitched whine cut through the air. A projectile struck the snow beside them, sending up a plume of white powder. "Ambush!" Jared shouted, diving for cover behind the sled. 3 figures emerged from the swirling snow, their forms bulky in thermal gear, but unmistakably non-human. The tallest among them stepped forward, his reptilian features visible beneath a transparent face shield. "Vexians," Kira hissed, quickly detaching herself from the tow cables. "Scavengers and thieves." The lead Vexian raised a clawed hand. "The medical supplies. Hand them over, and perhaps we'll let you live." His voice was a raspy hiss that seemed to freeze in the air. Jared's jaw tightened. "People will die without these supplies." "Not our concern," the Vexian replied with cold indifference. Kira moved to Jared's side, her body tense and ready. 3 against 2, she whispered. "I've faced worse odds." "So have I," Jared replied, drawing his pulse pistol. What happened next was a blur of motion and violence. The Vexians opened fire as Jared and Kira split in opposite directions. Jared rolled through the snow, coming up on one knee to return fire. His first shot caught a Vexian in the shoulder, spinning the alien around. Meanwhile, Kira moved with astonishing speed, dropping to all fours again, but this time as a predator, not a beast of burden. She launched herself at the nearest attacker, her claws extending from her fingertips as she slashed across his chest. The Vexian screamed, green blood spattering the pristine snow. Jared couldn't help but stare in amazement at her raw power and grace. The distraction nearly cost him as the lead Vexian fired, the shot grazing Jared's arm. Pain lanced through him, but adrenaline kept him moving. "The supplies!" Kira shouted, reminding him of their priority. Jared turned to see the third Vexian attempting to break into the cargo hold. With practiced precision, he took aim and fired twice. The Vexian dropped, clutching his leg. The skirmish ended as quickly as it had begun. The wounded Vexians retreated into the storm, leaving behind a trail of green blood in the snow. Kira returned to Jared's side, her breath coming in visible puffs. "You fight well for a human," she said, her eyes bright with the thrill of combat. "You're not so bad yourself," he replied, wincing as he examined his wound. The pulse blast had burned through his thermal gear, leaving an angry red mark on his bicep. Kira moved closer, her nose twitching slightly as she smelled his blood. "We need to treat that before it freezes." Without warning, she tore a strip of fabric from her own outfit and began binding his arm. Her touch was surprisingly gentle for someone who had just torn into an alien with her bare claws. "Thank you," Jared said, suddenly aware of how close she was. The scent of her was intoxicating, something wild and exotic that his human brain couldn't quite categorize. "Don't thank me yet," she replied, tying off the makeshift bandage. "The storm is getting worse, and those Vexians might return with friends." She looked up at the darkening sky. "We need shelter." "North Haven is still too far," Jared said, checking his navigation device. Kira's ears twitched forward, then back. She seemed to be considering something, weighing options in her mind. Finally, she sighed. "There's a Lunari outpost about 3 miles east of here. We can shelter there until the storm passes." Jared raised an eyebrow. "You're taking me to your people? I thought humans weren't welcome." "They're not," she confirmed with a grim smile. "But I'd rather face their disapproval than freeze to death out here." Her eyes met his, a hint of mischief returning. "Besides, I find your company interesting." The way she said interesting sent a warmth through Jared that had nothing to do with his thermal gear. Despite the danger they just faced, he found himself increasingly drawn to this alien woman. Her strength, her courage, her exotic beauty. As if reading his thoughts, Kira stepped closer, her fur-covered hand coming to rest on his chest. "You humans are fascinating creatures," she murmured. "So fragile compared to us, yet so determined." Her fingers traced the outline of his jaw. So different, yet somehow familiar. Jared's breath caught as she leaned in, her face inches from his. For a moment he thought she might kiss him, but instead she smiled and stepped back. "We should go," she said, returning to the front of the sled. "The outpost will have medical supplies for your arm, and warmth." The way she said warmth carried implications that made Jared's pulse quicken. As she reattached herself to the tow cables, he found himself staring at her lithe form, wondering what other surprises this alien woman might have in store. "Coming, courier," she called back, her tone playful despite their circumstances. Jared shook himself from his thoughts and returned to the controls. "Lead the way." As they set off toward the Lunari outpost, the storm intensified around them, but Jared barely noticed. His mind was filled with thoughts of Kira and what awaited them in the sanctuary of her people. The Lunari outpost emerged from the blizzard like a mirage, a structure that seemed to grow organically from the mountainside, its curved architecture blending seamlessly with the natural rock formations. Ice crystals formed intricate patterns across its surface, giving it an ethereal quality in the fading light. As they approached, Jared noticed movement along the perimeter. Guards with bows and what appeared to be energy spears took up defensive positions. "Stay behind me," Kira instructed, detaching herself from the tow cables. "Let me do the talking." A tall male Lunari stepped forward, his fur a deeper blue than Kira's, with silver streaks along his shoulders denoting rank or age. His ears flattened against his head when he spotted Jared. "Kirillana," he growled, using her full name. "You dare bring a human to our sanctuary?" Kira straightened to her full height, though she still stood a head shorter than the male. "Elder Wren, we seek temporary shelter from the storm. This human is a courier carrying vital medicines to North Haven." "That is not our concern," Elder Wren replied coldly. His gaze shifted to Jared, eyes narrowing. "Humans have never set foot in our territories. Our laws are clear." "The laws also speak of offering aid to those in need," came a female voice from behind the elder. A slender Lunari female emerged, her fur almost white with age, leaning on an ornate staff. Despite her apparent frailty, the others immediately bowed their heads in respect. "Matriarch Neela," Kira said, her voice softening. "The storm grows worse. The human is injured. We were attacked by Vexians." The matriarch's ears perked up at this. Vexians? So far from their territories? She studied Jared with keen interest. "What do they want with a human courier?" "The medical supplies I'm carrying," Jared answered, stepping forward despite Kira's warning glance. "They're rare compounds, synthesized on Earth, effective against the frost lung that's spreading through North Haven." "Frost lung?" The matriarch's expression grew concerned. "That disease has begun affecting our southern tribes as well." Elder Wren interjected, "Matriarch, with respect, allowing a human into our sanctuary violates our most sacred traditions, and Kirillana," he practically spat her name, "has already defied our ways repeatedly with her human fascinations." Several younger Lunari had gathered now, watching the exchange with curious eyes. One of them, a male with unusual copper markings in his fur, spoke up. "The human fought alongside Kira against Vexians. That counts for something, doesn't it?" Murmurs spread through the gathered Lunari. Jared realized there was a clear division, the elders mostly hostile, the younger ones curious or even supportive. The matriarch raised her staff, silencing the crowd. "Kirillana has always walked her own path. It is both her strength and her burden." She turned to Jared. "Human, what is your name?" "Jared Frost, ma'am," he replied, instinctively using a term of respect. This drew surprised looks from the Lunari, and what might have been a smile from the matriarch. "You may both enter. The human will be your responsibility, Kirillana." "Matriarch," Elder Wren protested. "The council will be informed of my decision," she finished firmly. "Now see to it that their vehicle and cargo are secured." As they were led inside, Kira walked close to Jared. "That went better than expected," she whispered. "You're an outcast among your people?" he asked quietly. Her ears flattened slightly. "Let's just say I've always been curious about the world beyond our territories, particularly humans." Her amber eyes met his. My people fear what they don't understand. They've isolated themselves for generations, watching human settlements expand across Lumina. Inside, the outpost was surprisingly warm and well-lit. Bioluminescent plants provided soft illumination, and geothermal vents heated the space. Jared received curious stares from every Lunari they passed. They were shown to a small chamber with sleeping furs and a heating element. Once alone, Kira's demeanor changed. The confidence she'd shown outside gave way to a vulnerability that surprised Jared. "I've dreamed of bringing a human here," she admitted, sitting beside him on the sleeping furs, "to show my people that humans aren't the monsters our stories make them out to be." "And what do you think we are?" Jared asked, removing his outer thermal gear. The wound on his arm had stopped bleeding, but still throbbed painfully. Kira moved closer, helping him with his gear. "Fascinating," she said simply. Her fingers lingered on his exposed skin. "Your kind has accomplished so much in such a short time on Lumina. You build, adapt, overcome, while my people hide and cling to the past." Her touch sent electricity through Jared's body. The close quarters and the intensity of the day's events had heightened every sensation. "Here," she said, producing a small container of salve. "For your wound." As she applied the medicine, her face inches from his, Jared caught her scent again, wild, intoxicating. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. "Kira," he began, but was interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. The copper-marked male from earlier entered, his expression urgent. "The council demands your presence, both of you." His eyes darted nervously between them. "There's more. Scouts report a large Vexian hunting party approaching from the south. And they're not alone. They've brought Dravari mercenaries." Kira's face paled beneath her fur. "Dravari? Are you certain?" The male nodded grimly. "And there's talk of a bounty, not just for the medical supplies." He looked directly at Kira. "For Lunari pelts." Jared felt a cold rage building inside him. "They're hunting your people?" "Our fur is valuable to certain collectors," Kira explained, her voice tight, "especially rare colorations like mine." Jared stood, wincing slightly from his injury. "Then we need to warn North Haven too. This isn't just about my delivery anymore." As they followed the copper-marked Lunari through the corridors, Kira's hand found Jared's, squeezing it briefly. The gesture was both a thank you and something more, a connection forming between them that transcended their different species. Whatever awaited them with the council, Jared knew one thing for certain. He would protect Kira and her people, no matter the cost. The Lunari Council Chamber was a circular room carved directly into the mountain. 7 elders, including Ren and Matriarch Neela, sat on elevated stone seats arranged in a semicircle. The walls were adorned with intricate tapestries depicting Lunari history. Notably absent were any images of humans or other alien species. Jared stood in the center of the chamber, acutely aware that he was the first human to ever address this council. Kira stood beside him, her posture tense but determined. "The human wishes to speak," Matriarch Neela announced, her voice carrying surprising strength. "We will listen." Jared took a deep breath. "Your people and mine face a common threat. The Vexians and Dravari mercenaries aren't just after my medical supplies. They're hunting Lunari for their fur." He paused, letting the gravity of his words sink in. "Alone, neither of us may survive. Together, we have a chance." Elder Ren scoffed. "And what would you have us do, human? Abandon centuries of isolation on your word?" "Not abandon, evolve," Jared countered. "My transport sled contains advanced communication equipment. If we can repair it using your biotechnology, we can alert both North Haven and the human military outpost about the threat." This caused a stir among the council members. One of the female elders leaned forward. "You would bring human military to our territories?" "To defend both our peoples," Jared clarified. "But we need to act quickly. While we debate, the hunters draw closer, and people in North Haven continue to die from frost lung." The copper-marked Lunari who had escorted them earlier stepped forward. "I can help repair the communication equipment. I've studied human technology." "Terran!" Elder Ren growled. "You overstep!" "No, Elder," Terran replied firmly. "I prepare for our future. The same future Kira has seen coming for years, while the rest of you hid in these mountains." Matriarch Neela raised her staff, silencing the brewing argument. The human speaks wisdom. Isolation has protected us, but times change. She turned to Jared. What do you propose, specifically? Jared outlined his plan. Repair the communications, alert human authorities, and meanwhile lead the hunters away from the outpost by taking a treacherous mountain pass to North Haven with the medical supplies. It's a diversion, he explained. Kira and I will draw them away while you prepare your defenses and await human reinforcements. The council chamber erupted in debate. Through it all, Kira remained at Jared's side, occasionally brushing against him in what he realized was a gesture of support and something more intimate. Finally, Matriarch Neela spoke. We will help repair your communication device. Terran will assist you. As for the rest, she looked at Kira. Kira Lana has always chosen her own path. If she wishes to continue aiding you, that is her choice. After the council dispersed, Jared, Kira, and Terran retrieved the damaged communication module from the transport sled. They worked in a small workshop within the outpost. Terran's knowledge of human technology proving surprisingly comprehensive. How do you know so much about our tech? Jared asked as they connected Lunari biocircuits to his communication array. Terran's ears twitched in what Jared had come to recognize as embarrassment. Kira isn't the only one curious about humans. I've been collecting your discarded technology for years. Kira smiled. Terran and I are part of a small group who believe our future lies in cooperation with humans, not isolation. As they worked, Jared noticed the way Kira moved around him, always finding reasons to touch his arm or lean against him. Each contact sent warmth spreading through his body despite the chill in the air. When Terran left to gather more components, Kira moved closer to Jared. You were magnificent before the council, she said, her voice low and intimate. Most humans would have cowered before them. I'm not most humans, Jared replied with a half smile. No, she agreed, her amber eyes holding his gaze. You're not. Without warning, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The sensation was both familiar and exotic, her lips softer than he expected, the short fur around her face tickling his skin. When they parted, both were breathing heavily. I've wanted to do that since I first saw you in the snow, she admitted. Jared traced the outline of her face with his fingers, marveling at the silky texture of her fur. Is this why you're an outcast? Your interest in humans goes beyond academic curiosity? She laughed softly. My people have many taboos. Attraction to other species is near the top of the list. Her ears flattened slightly. They believe it dilutes our bloodline, weakens our species. And what do you believe? Jared asked, his hand now resting on the small of her back. I believe in connection, she whispered, pressing against him, in finding strength through difference, not weakness. Their second kiss was deeper, more urgent. Jared felt himself responding to her in ways he'd never experienced with human women, something primal and intense that transcended species. They were interrupted by Terran's return. If the other Lunari noticed their flushed appearance, he tactfully said nothing. By midnight, they had the communication array working. Jared sent encrypted messages to both North Haven and the human military outpost, detailing the threat and requesting immediate assistance. It's done, he said, setting down the transmitter. Now we need to prepare for our journey tomorrow. Kira nodded, her expression a mix of determination and something more vulnerable. My quarters are more private than the guest chamber, she said, her meaning clear. We should rest while we can. As they left, Terran caught Jared's arm. Take care of her, he said quietly. She's risked everything for what she believes in. For you. I will, Jared promised, suddenly understanding the weight of what was happening between him and Kira, a connection that defied both their species' expectations. That night, in the privacy of Kira's quarters, they discovered each other fully. Human and Lunari, different in form, but united in passion, finding in each other's arms a connection that transcended the physical. As the storm raged outside, they created their own warmth, their bodies speaking a language that needed no translation. Dawn broke with reluctance over the mountains, the pale light barely penetrating the ongoing storm. Jared and Kira prepared the sled in the outpost's sheltered entrance, securing the medical supplies and checking the makeshift repairs to the steering mechanism. The pass ahead is treacherous, Kira explained, tracing a route on the holographic map projected from Jared's wrist device. But it's our best chance to reach North Haven while drawing the hunters away from the outpost. Jared nodded. his mind still half occupied with memories of the previous night. The way Kira had moved against him, the surprising softness of her fur, the intensity of their connection, it had been unlike anything he'd experienced before. More than physical pleasure, it had felt like a joining of worlds. "Thinking about last night?" Kira asked with a knowing smile, her tail swishing playfully behind her. Jared felt heat rise to his face. "Is it that obvious?" "Your scent changes," she replied, leaning in to nuzzle his neck briefly. "It's intoxicating." Their intimate moment was interrupted by the arrival of Terran, laden with equipment. The copper-marked Lunari was dressed for travel, a pack slung over his shoulder and what appeared to be a rifle-like weapon strapped to his back. "I'm coming with you," he announced without preamble. Kira's ears flattened in surprise. "On Terran, the Council didn't authorize—" "The Council doesn't need to know everything," he replied, setting down his pack. "Besides, you'll need this." He unslung the weapon from his back, presenting it to Jared. It was unlike any gun Jared had seen before, a hybrid of sleek human technology and organic Lunari components. The barrel seemed to pulse with a faint blue light. "What is it?" Jared asked, accepting the weapon cautiously. "I call it a pulse resonator," Terran explained with evident pride. "It combines your human energy weapons with our bioresonance technology, specifically calibrated to disrupt Draveri neural patterns." Jared tested the weapon's weight and balance. "You designed this?" Terran's ears twitched in what Jared now recognized as embarrassment. "I've been experimenting with human tech for years, in secret, of course." "It's illegal," Kira added, though her tone held admiration rather than censure. "Terran could be exiled just for creating it." "Then I might as well come along and put it to good use," Terran replied with a shrug. "Three stand a better chance than two." Matriarch Neela appeared at the entrance, leaning heavily on her staff. "The young one speaks wisdom," she said, her ancient eyes taking in the scene. "Terran, you have my blessing to accompany them." "Matriarch," Kira began to protest, but the old Lunari raised a hand. "The time for half measures is past, Kirilana. The path you walk may determine the future of our people." Her gaze shifted to Jared. "Human, I sense in you a spirit unlike others of your kind who have settled on our world. There is honor in you." "Thank you, Matriarch," Jared replied, bowing his head slightly. The old Lunari approached Kira, placing a gnarled hand on her cheek. "Your mother would be proud of your courage, child. Even if she never understood your fascination with humans," she smiled faintly. "Perhaps she would understand now." With final preparations complete, they set out into the storm. Kira once again took position at the front of the sled, dropping to all fours and securing the tow cables to her harness. Terran took up position as rear guard, his keen eyes scanning the white landscape for threats. Jared couldn't help but admire Kira as she pulled the sled with powerful, graceful movements. After their night together, watching her like this, on all fours, muscles flexing beneath her blue fur, stirred feelings both protective and possessive. They made good progress through the morning, the storm providing cover as they navigated the treacherous mountain pass. Terran proved his worth quickly, his knowledge of the terrain guiding them through shortcuts invisible to Jared's human eyes. It was near midday when Terran suddenly signaled for a halt, his ears swiveling to catch sounds beyond human hearing. "What is it?" Jared whispered, hand moving to the pulse resonator. "Something's tracking us," Terran replied, nose twitching as he scented the air. "Not Vexian. Different." Kira detached from the tow cables, moving to Jared's side. "Dravari," she confirmed grimly. "They're using bio-trackers, devices that can detect Lunari life signatures." "They're hunting you specifically," Jared realized, anger building in his chest. "My fur coloration is rare," Kira explained, unconsciously pressing closer to him. "Worth more to collectors." The thought of Kira being hunted for her pelt filled Jared with a cold rage. He pulled her against him protectively, his hand stroking the soft fur at the nape of her neck. "No one's collecting anything," he promised, his voice hard with determination. "We need to keep moving." They pressed on, now acutely aware of being hunted. Terran rigged a series of false biosignatures, small devices that would emit Lunari life readings and hopefully confuse their pursuers. As they navigated a particularly narrow ridge, Kira pulling the sled with careful precision, Jared found himself marveling at the strange turn his life had taken. 2 days ago, he'd been a simple courier with a broken transport. Now he was defending an alien woman he'd grown to care for deeply, fleeing hunters while trying to deliver life-saving medicine. "You're staring again," Kira called back, a smile in her voice despite their situation. "Hard not to," Jared replied honestly. Terran made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You two are making me uncomfortable." "Jealous?" Kira teased. "Curious," Terran corrected. "Human-Lunari pairings are rare, but not unheard of in the border settlements. I've always wondered about the compatibility." "Very compatible," Kira purred, causing Jared to nearly slip on the icy path. Their banter was cut short by a distant sound, the distinctive whine of Dravari hoversleds. "They're closing in," Terran warned, readying his own weapon. "We need to find defensive position or pick up the pace." Jared checked his wrist device. "North Haven is still 15 miles away. We'll never outrun hoversleds on this terrain." Kira's eyes met his, determination replacing fear. "Then we make a stand. There's a box canyon ahead that offers cover. We can set an ambush of our own." As they changed course toward the canyon, Jared moved alongside Kira, his hand briefly touching hers. Last night they had discovered each other as lovers. Today they would fight together as warriors. The hunters were about to discover that tracking a Lunari with a human protector was a deadly mistake. The box canyon was perfect for an ambush, high walls of ice and stone creating a natural bottleneck. Jared positioned himself on a narrow ledge overlooking the entrance, the pulse resonator humming softly in his hands. Kira had concealed the sled with the medical supplies deeper in the canyon, while Terran set up his biosignature decoys to confuse the hunters' tracking systems. "3 Dravari hover sleds approaching," Terran reported, his enhanced vision picking out the distant shapes through the swirling snow. 2 riders each, heavily armed. Jared's military training from before his courier days kicked in. "We let them enter the canyon, then trigger the avalanche charges on my mark. That should disable their vehicles. After that, we pick them off one by one." Kira moved to his side, her fur ruffling in the bitter wind. "The Dravari are ruthless hunters, Jared. They won't surrender." "I'm not planning to ask them to," he replied grimly. The whine of hover sleds grew louder. Jared gave Kira's hand a quick squeeze before she took her position on the opposite ledge, armed with a Lunari energy bow. Their eyes met briefly across the gap. No words needed between them now. The first hover sled entered the canyon, its riders scanning the walls with targeting sensors. The Dravari were tall, reptilian creatures with scales that shifted color to match their surroundings. Natural predators evolved for the hunt. Their armor bristled with weapons and collection tools that Jared didn't want to contemplate. When all 3 sleds had entered the kill zone, Jared pressed the detonator. The carefully placed charges, improvised from components in his emergency kit, triggered a controlled avalanche. Snow and ice crashed down behind the Dravari, cutting off their retreat. The hunters reacted instantly, weapons raised as they searched for their attackers. Jared took aim with the pulse resonator and fired. The weapon discharged with a sound like a thunderclap, the blue energy pulse striking a Dravari square in the chest. The hunter convulsed as his neural system overloaded, then collapsed. "It works!" Terran shouted excitedly from his position. The battle erupted in earnest. Kira's energy arrows found their marks with uncanny precision, while Terran used his decoys to draw fire away from their actual positions. Jared moved from cover to cover, the pulse resonator proving devastatingly effective against the Dravari's biology. They had eliminated 4 of the hunters when disaster struck. A Dravari energy blast caught Terran in the side as he moved between positions. The young Lunari cried out, tumbling down the icy slope to land in a crumpled heap in the open. "Terran!" Kira screamed, preparing to leap down to help him. "Cover me!" Jared shouted, already sliding down the slope toward their fallen friend. Pulse resonator fire from Kira kept the remaining Dravari pinned down as Jared reached Terran. The wound was bad, a charred gash across his ribs, blue blood staining the snow. Terran's eyes were glazed with pain, his breathing labored. "Get back!" he gasped. "Finish them!" "Not leaving you," Jared grunted, hoisting the Lunari over his shoulder in a fireman's carry. A Dravari blast struck near his feet, sending up a spray of ice. Jared returned fire one-handed, the pulse resonator's kick nearly throwing him off balance. As he struggled toward cover, the distinctive roar of human military engines echoed through the canyon. A sleek combat shuttle appeared over the ridge, its weapon systems already targeting the remaining Dravari. "This is Captain Harding, Colonial Marines," a voice boomed over external speakers. "Drop your weapons or be neutralized." The Dravari, recognizing the superior firepower, attempted to flee, only to be cut down by precision fire from the shuttle's pulse cannons. As the shuttle landed, Jared carried Terran toward it, Kira racing to join them. Marines in white Arctic gear deployed, securing the area with practiced efficiency. A tall, broad-shouldered officer approached them. "Jared Frost? We received your distress call." His eyes widened slightly at the sight of Kira, but to his credit, he showed no other reaction to the alien woman. "Captain Harding," Jared acknowledged, "we have a wounded Lunari and medical supplies for North Haven." "And apparently a first contact situation," Harding added, eyeing Kira with professional curiosity rather than hostility. "The Colonel is going to love this." Medics rushed forward to attend to Terran, using advanced human medical technology that drew curious looks from Kira. "Will he live?" she asked anxiously. The lead medic nodded. "The wound's serious but treatable. We have compatible synthetic blood substitutes on board." Relief flooded through Jared. He hadn't realized how important the young Lunari had become to him in their short time together. Terran's sacrifice had saved them both. As they boarded the shuttle with the medical supplies, Captain Harding approached Jared privately. "Command's buzzing about this. First official contact with the Lunari. They're saying you may have just changed the course of human-alien relations on Lumina." Jared glanced at Kira, who was hovering protectively near Terran's stretcher. "She changed it. I just got lucky enough to be there when my transport broke down." Harding followed his gaze, a knowing look crossing his features. "I see. Well, the Colonel wants to debrief you both when we reach North Haven. After we deliver those medical supplies, of course." The shuttle lifted off, its advanced engines making short work of the journey that would have taken them another day on foot. Kira came to sit beside Jared, her hand finding his, fingers intertwining. "Your people came," she said softly, "just as you promised." "Humans look after their own," Jared replied, "and now that includes you and Terran." She leaned against him, her warmth a comfort after the adrenaline of battle. "What happens now?" "Between our peoples?" "That's above my pay grade," Jared admitted, "but I know what happens between us." He lifted her hand to his lips, kissing it gently. "If you'll have me." Kira's amber eyes met his, a smile playing at her lips. "I already did, remember?" "Quite thoroughly." Jared felt heat rise to his face as memories of their night together flashed through his mind. A nearby Marine pretended not to hear, suddenly very interested in his weapon systems. As North Haven's lights appeared on the horizon, Jared realized how much had changed in just 3 days. What had started as a broken-down transport and a strange alien woman pulling his sled on all fours had transformed into something that might reshape the relationship between two species. And more importantly, it had reshaped him. Whatever came next, diplomatic negotiations, military debriefings, medical treatments, he knew one thing for certain: he and Kira would face it together. 3 months after the fateful day when Jared's engine died in the mountains of Lumina, he stood at the entrance of the Lunari Great Hall, adjusting the ceremonial garments that felt foreign against his skin. The traditional Lunari formal wear, adapted slightly for human physiology, consisted of intricately woven fibers that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns. "Stop fidgeting," Terran chided, his copper-marked fur now complemented by a distinctive scar along his side. A permanent reminder of their battle with the Dravari. "You look fine for a furless creature," Jared grinned. "Thanks for the vote of confidence." The past months had transformed Lumina. The medical supplies had reached North Haven in time, saving hundreds of lives. More significantly, the encounter between Jared, Kira, and the Colonial Marines had sparked the first official diplomatic relations between humans and Lunari in the planet's history. Today marked the formal signing of the Alliance Treaty, a document that would forever change both societies. And at the center of it all were an unlikely courier and the alien woman who had pulled his sled on all fours through a snowstorm. "Nervous?" Colonel Blackwood asked, approaching with Captain Harding. Both men wore formal military dress uniforms, adorned with the new insignia of the Joint Planetary Defense Force. "About the ceremony?" "No," Jared replied honestly. "About not tripping over these robes?" Absolutely. The colonel laughed, a sound that had become more common as the tensions between their species eased. You've done remarkable work, Frost. The diplomatic corps is still trying to figure out how to properly reward you. I already got my reward, Jared said, his eyes finding Kira across the hall. She was engaged in conversation with matriarch Neela and several human diplomats, her blue fur groomed to a lustrous shine for the occasion. The formal Lunari attire she wore emphasized her graceful form while conveying her new status as official ambassador to human territories. When she caught Jared staring, her ears perked up and she offered a private smile that still made his heart race. The transformation hadn't been without challenges. Elder Ren and his traditionalist faction had initially opposed any alliance, while some human corporations had attempted to exploit the situation for access to Lunari territories. But the combined leadership of Matriarch Neela and Colonel Blackwood had navigated these obstacles with surprising harmony. Most remarkably, Terran's hybrid technology had become the foundation for a joint research initiative. His pulse resonator was now standard issue for patrols protecting both species from Dravari and Vexian threats. It's time, Captain Harding announced as ceremonial horns echoed through the hall. The formal proceedings began with traditional rituals from both cultures. Jared and Kira stood side by side at the center of the gathering, living symbols of what cooperation between their species could achieve. When the treaty was finally signed, the hall erupted in celebration. Lunari and humans mingled with growing ease, the initial awkwardness between the species fading with each passing day. As the festivities continued, Kira pulled Jared away from the crowd, leading him to a private balcony overlooking the snow-covered mountains. Happy? She asked, pressing against him in a way that had become wonderfully familiar. More than I thought possible, he admitted, wrapping his arms around her. Though I'm still getting used to being called the ambassador's mate by your people. Kira laughed, the sound like music to his ears. Would you prefer the human who couldn't keep his engine running? Very funny, he murmured, nuzzling her neck in the way he'd learned she loved. I've been meaning to ask you something. Her ears twitched with interest. Yes? That favor you said I'd owe you, back when we first met. You never did collect. Kira's amber eyes sparkled with mischief. Oh, but I did. Many times, in fact. Particularly that night at the outpost. Jared felt heat rise to his face. Their physical relationship had only deepened with time, each encounter a new exploration of the beautiful compatibility between their different bodies. That's not what I meant, he protested, though he couldn't help smiling at the memories. I know, she replied, suddenly serious. The truth is, you've given me more than I ever asked for. You helped my people open their eyes to new possibilities. You showed them that humans could be trusted allies, not feared invaders. She reached up to trace the line of his jaw with delicate claws. But if you insist on repaying debts, I do have one request. Name it. Come with me on the diplomatic mission to Earth next month. I want to see your homeworld, and I want your people to see that not all aliens are threats to be conquered. Jared's heart swelled. The thought of showing Kira the oceans and forests of Earth, of introducing her to his family, felt right in a way he couldn't articulate. I'd be honored, Horst, he said, though I should warn you, my mother is going to have 1,000 questions about Lunari mating rituals. Kira's laugh echoed across the mountains. I look forward to educating her. Their conversation was interrupted by Terran, who approached with an excited bounce in his step. There you two are. The new courier vehicles are ready for demonstration. The improved transports, combining human engine technology with Lunari biomechanical components, were the first tangible products of their alliance. More importantly to Jared, they meant no more couriers would find themselves stranded in snowstorms. Will you miss pulling sleds? Jared teased as they followed Terran back inside. Kira's tail swished playfully. Perhaps, though I found other ways to demonstrate my physical capabilities. As they rejoined the celebration, Jared reflected on the strange path that had brought him here. A broken engine, a beautiful alien woman on all fours in the snow, a desperate journey that had changed two worlds. Later that night, in the privacy of their quarters, Kira once again demonstrated those capabilities she'd mentioned, their bodies finding that perfect harmony that transcended their different origins. In the afterglow, as she curled against him, her fur soft against his skin, Jared knew with absolute certainty that he'd never regret that broken engine in the mountains. Sometimes the greatest journeys began with a breakdown, And sometimes the most precious cargo wasn't what you were hired to deliver, but what you found along the way. Outside their window, the first joint patrol of human and Lunari forces departed to secure the borders against any who would threaten their new alliance. The future stretched before them, not just for Jared and Kira, but for both their peoples, full of challenges, but also full of hope. And it had all started because his engine died, and a canine alien girl pulled the cart on all fours.